Hello, this is Marco Lerock, host of Marco Lerock TV. So excited for today's show. We have Brandi Petersen. She's a former KETV anchor, and she is the current Director of Communication and Engagement for Westside Community Schools and co-marketing director with Miss Nebraska pageant, a blogger, and a mom. Welcome, Brandi.
Thank you, Marco.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited to see what we're going to go into today.
Well, just be ready. So you were a successful news anchor and award-winning journalist, nominated for 2 regional Emmy Awards, and has secured high-profile interview, including one with President Obama.
That's right.
What are the key to the success, Brandi?
You know, I think for me, there were several factors, and diligence was certainly one of those factors. I tell students when I talk to them, get an internship. I had 3 at KETV, and I joke that I just never went away. I just kept pestering them and bothering them. But seriously, when you're there to not only network and learn, but you're there in case that door opens. You can walk right through and set up success for yourself. I think hard work certainly played a factor in that. There was no shift I wasn't willing to do, no task I wasn't willing to try. I certainly wasn't the best at everything. Our photographers at KETV were the best in the region, if not in the country. And so trying to pick up a camera and do that, I knew I was not going to be as good as them, but I certainly tried to learn from them, and I learned to edit. So if I needed to in that situation, which now at Westside I do need to learn how to do, learning as much as I could in all different facets of the job was extremely important. And I would say to anyone who plans on going into broadcast journalism or any mode of journalism, you need to know every single facet, because it is such a changing profession and changing environment that you are going to be that much more successful and that much more of an asset to your firm or your company or to a station to hire you if you know all those skills.
So basically you had to know like all those pieces. So not just journalism, you had to like maybe know editing.
Absolutely.
All those aspects.
I think people joked all the time, like, don't you just read a teleprompter? And that was a big portion of what we did. But Rob McCartney, he edits everything he does.
He's
everything
my man.
you
I like
see,
him.
he is the man. He's the man. He edits everything. We helped write every night. We assisted our producers if they needed help writing scripts. And certainly just the storytelling process, the story choosing process about what we were going to focus on that night, that was a community effort. Again, editing, sometimes shooting. If it's a big scene going on and your photographer's doing and all of a sudden you see a tornado drop out of the sky, you got to know how to pick up a camera and think on your feet and go. So yeah, absolutely. It was a team effort, everybody picking up pieces to put it all together into one cohesive.
So you also have a successful blog that focuses on Miss Nebraska and former Huskers players. Why you branch those niche?
So when I started my blog, it was when I went on maternity leave, and I wanted to enjoy that precious time with my son so much.
And how long ago was that?
Whew. He was born in January of 11, and I started it right during that winter. I wanted to maintain a connection with our viewers, so when I came back, it wasn't such a shock, like, who are you? But at the same time, I wanted to be at home and enjoy my son. So the blogging was a way that I could do that. I could do it on my own terms in my own time. And eventually, when I didn't need to write about poopy diapers and lack of sleep anymore that comes along with having a newborn, writing has always been a passion of mine ever since I was a little girl. And I started writing more about just whatever was in my head that day. Maybe it was a little more about getting to know the people in my stories. Maybe it was about the events and when you're in TV news, you only have so many minutes to write a story. And there are so many other components and parts of that story that the blog was a perfect avenue for that. As time went along and I became more active in the Miss Nebraska organization, I was so inspired by these incredible young women, and each of them had their own story. Our current Miss Nebraska, Allison Tejan, has gone on 3 honor flights with our veterans. She's raised $20,000 for them to go on these flights.
That's amazing.
So I was curious, why did she want to do that? She's 20 years old. She could do anything. Why is she doing that? Each of these young women has a story like that. Same with the Huskers. These are young men who, you know, everybody has a fan. We've watched them on TV. But now that they have gone on to do different things, whether it's professional football or becoming a doctor or becoming a state senator, they each have their stories that have continued long beyond their playing days. And not only do I enjoy writing about that, in my time at KETV, that was a huge feature for us because people enjoy that. They want to know what they're doing now, long beyond their Husker days.
So yeah, so basically you have a case for why you're covering those two areas. I love that. You mentioned when you were leaving KTV that you want to spend time with your children. Mm-hmm. But then you dive into this blog thing, and then with the Miss Nebraska, mm-hmm. so a different event, like, you know, the fashion show, those kind of stuff. Don't all those stuff take our time away from that purpose that you mentioned earlier? And
here's the big difference. TV news is an incredibly invigorating, exciting profession. It is like nothing else out there. One of my mentors, Joe Casimir, who hired me, he gave me a fortune cookie once that said, one day, it was a thing, a fortune cookie mock-up.
I love fortune cookies.
Yeah, something like that. But it said, journalism. One day you'll be covering the president, the next day you'll be covering a dog's wedding. And that was perfect because you never know what you're going to do when you walk into a dog's wedding.
Okay.
It has happened.
I never heard that before, Ben.
Look it up on YouTube, Marco. You'll find it. But that was what was so exciting about TV news. The flip side, when you have little guys at home, in my case, who have school carnivals, who have drum recitals, who have t-ball games, it's really hard for them to understand and for you to come to terms with, Mommy can't go to that because tornadoes dropped across southwest Iowa. Mommy can't be there because I have a newscast at this time that I got to be there for and get ready. With my news schedule, I can kind of pick and choose what I want. I write my blogs after my boys go to bed when I'm sitting on my patio and have the breeze. I find ways to incorporate things I love in events. I'll be hosting Omaha Fashion Week coming up, and that's become an annual night my girlfriends and I look forward to, that we get all dolled up and get to go.
Yeah.
So I find ways to make it all balance and work together. Unfortunately, with TV, as much as I loved it, as much as I loved the storytelling, I loved my colleagues and I miss them dearly every day.
You don't cry, right? You don't cry missing them.
Sometimes, Rob, I miss you. Miss you. You know, shifting to a place like Westside Community Schools, which is the best district in our state, hands down, I get to do writing. I get to focus on those incredible things I'm so passionate about. I feel like I can use my talents for a really good purpose, sharing what's going on in our public schools, but it's most of the time in a set schedule where I can plan something later that evening or on a holiday or on a weekend. Not always. If we have a board meeting or something going on, I need to be there for that. But it's a little more flexibility that I wanted with my growing family because that time is precious.
So talking about millennials, especially girls, I want to touch a little bit on personal branding. What advice can you have for them when it comes to their brands, what they're doing today? How can those things affect them tomorrow?
Sure. The biggest thing I would say is the sky is the limit. You can do absolutely anything you want to do and never put yourself in a box that you think society or your school or anybody has built for you. Especially working with these young women at Miss Nebraska, we have women who are collegiate athletes who then turn around and put on a beautiful gown, not because they have to, because they like to, because it makes them feel good to do that. In our school system, I am blessed to work in a district that at the junior high level, our STEM program for young women is exceptional. One of our teachers, Christine Shabram, has won numerous awards for science, technology, engineering, and math for
That's
our
amazing.
girls. It's great. And it gives these kids, particularly young women, the opportunity to try something, to go out there, and whether you think that girls don't do this or not, you can do it. Go out and do it. And the last piece of advice I would have for everyone, teenagers and young women in general, is to think very carefully about what you post on social media. Because so often, and it really seems like young women in particular, are posting things that, I don't know what their reasoning is, if they feel cool, if they think that's the thing to do, but whether it's objectifying themselves, whether it's sexualizing themselves, especially for younger girls, whether it's something that's just embarrassing. Would you show that to your grandma? Would you stop your mom and say, Mom, look at this? And if the answer is no, don't put that on social media, because that can potentially haunt you for life and brand you in a way that you may not want people to think of you, whether you realize it now or not.
Yeah. Do you think it's a peer pressure sometimes where people have to post all those pictures like on Instagram, all those kinds, because they feel like, okay, my friend just posted this, she has like maybe 1,000 views or likes, then I have to do it. Then if I don't do it, I'm not cool enough.
Sure, and I think that there's also, it just becomes instinctual. Once you start down that path, I certainly feel myself falling into it and need my husband or my kids to remind me, Mommy, put down the phone. But you feed off of that. Someone liked my picture, someone retweeted my tweet, someone liked something I put on Instagram. You feed off of that, and I think there's scientific studies that show there's certain firing systems in our brain that truly react to that. So when you're in a culture, whether you're in 5th grade or you're in 12th grade or you're 36 or whatever it may be, that everyone else is doing it, maybe you join so you can follow what they're doing, and then you start posting because it makes you feel good. You want to share pictures of your dog or your kids or an accomplishment you had. But then it becomes like a drug that you continuously have to go after to get that fix, and it starts to take away from life, from the real world, from really communicating with someone face to face rather than through your phone.
Yeah, that's true. So what else is your to-do list? You know, you have so many things going on. Don't tell me you're trying to add more to it.
No, Al. I would love to write a book someday.
Okay.
It's on my bucket list, if you will. I don't know if anyone would read it other than me. Maybe my mom. Thanks, Mom.
I'll read it.
Thank you, Marco. I got 3. Yes. But I just love to write. I just love it. And I find it so rewarding when someone tells me, thank you for writing that, or I really enjoyed that. And it's very strange. I'm a student of history. History was one of my minors in college. And just to think of chronicling our history, my history, in a very small, microscopic part of our world, but just how I viewed things as they were happening throughout time. Even if I'm 85 years old and I look back and read my book, it would be something, but I love to write. I would love to do that. My husband and I love to travel, and now that our boys are getting a little bit older, we hope to start taking them with us a little bit more.
Awesome.
I think Disney World is on our list as soon as they get through that first plane ride, and there's no puking on Mom or any breakdowns at O'Hare or anything like that.
Yeah.
And my husband and I are huge, huge baseball fans. It's always been on our long-term bucket list to visit every baseball stadium in America. Oh. And we're very lucky that we have some friends that play in the bigs now that hopefully we can go see them while they're still playing and cheer them on.
Yeah. So if you have a power to make one change in the world right now, what would that be?
I would love to see people just be more kind to each other. I think that it truly, it sounds so cliche to say this, but it hurts my heart to see the cruelness and the evil and just mean-spiritedness that you see on social media more and more. We certainly saw it in emails and things people would send to us at KETV. And I just think that, you know, we're dealing with a lot of challenges in our world today, whether it's politically, globally. Perhaps it's growing up as a journalist and having this embedded in me from day one to always listen to every side of the issue. But even if you have very firm beliefs from your faith, from how you were brought up, from what you believe as for where you are now, you can always listen to someone. And if you don't agree with them, you can respectfully disagree with them. But to see some of the hateful, horrible things that people say to one another, whether it's in person or online or via email or text, we're better than that. We're better as people. We've overcome better than that historically, generation after generation. And I just think that the good of all people, I would like to see that come out more. And I hope all of us that have kids or see kids or anything, raise them to just be a little more kinder moving forward.
What would be your last advice to my viewers?
I say just do what you love. Do more of what you love. I mentioned earlier, I pride myself and I humble myself to say I'm a very hard worker, but especially I see in my boys that life is extremely precious. And my husband and I recently lost a very close friend that he was way too young to go. And you know, so many things that you work for because you think that's so important to do at the time and you have to do this, just stop and ask yourself why. At the end of the day, why am I doing this? do more of what you love, whether if it's hanging out with your kids. If you want to travel, save up that money and travel. If you want to sing the College World Series national anthem, practice your butt off, find a soloist who will help you, try out and make it happen. Just do more of what you love.
Awesome. How can people find more about the work that you do, your blog, everything?
Great. It's super easy if you spell the Petersen part right. Brandi with an I, Petersen with an EN.com. That's my blog, and a lot of my social media links are there. Also, I really encourage you to go to westside66.org. That's Westside Community Schools, where I work now. And we have incredible things on the horizon in this district.
Awesome.
We have an amazing superintendent, a great board who works together, and we have 6,000 incredible students that are making amazing things happen day after day.
That's so great. Brandi, thank you so much
Great to see you, Marco.